Before we get into it, I got to shout out TrillBroDude from the You Know Ball podcast, the Slop Father. We just got done recording like an hour-long Sixers type podcast episode. Since I do videos on my channel, I'm just going to release them in different parts, and here's the first part. But definitely check him out. He's got a Patreon, just great stuff over there. Joining that will give you access to their Discord with a bunch of Sixers fans. Every video with him, his links will be in the description and of course pinned in the comment section. Follow him on Twitter and YouTube. But without further ado, let's get into it.
So I want to get your thoughts on what you think the starting lineup will be, and not just yours, but also Nick Nurse's, because personally, I think Nick Nurse is going to start Maxey, Grimes, Oubre, George, and Embiid. That's what I'm thinking. If everyone's healthy, obviously, George is injured, so who knows? We're all up in the air, but let's just assume everyone's healthy. Who do you have Nick Nurse going with for the starting unit?
I think if everyone's healthy and we're assuming that Grimes comes back next year, which at this point there isn't really any other options for him. There's no cap space around the league. I mean, the worst case scenario probably for the Sixers is that he accepts the qualifying offer and just comes back for 1 year and we kind of get stuck in limbo with him. But I would imagine that that is what the starting lineup looks like when everyone is healthy, when everyone is available. Now that if is getting larger by the day. It feels like we really have not gotten any positive updates on Joel Embiid. We also got the terrible update about Paul George's another surgery for him yesterday. So the starting five was going to have this balance of shooting, creation, and I would say it is definitely more offensively tilted than defensively, but a lot of these guys don't take stuff off the table defensively. The thing that I've been worried about with the Sixers the whole offseason, I think everyone in the fan base has been worried, is that 4 spot. And the Paul George injury is just adding another wrinkle to that, where it's like, all right, well, now Paul George isn't available. We were already worried about him playing there because we didn't want him to have to take certain matchups where we're playing against teams that start double bigs. Like if they play the Knicks, we don't want him guarding Karl Anthony Towns or anything along those lines. And then there are teams across the NBA that are starting to move back to that. And it feels like just a matchup where not only would he get physically kind of cooked potentially, but also on the glass, we would just get destroyed. And with an aging, potentially less mobile version of Joel Embiid, what does that really look like with this team when you don't have a traditional 4? I think they took a few, low risk flyers that I somewhat liked in Trendon Watford, Jabari Walker, and Dom Barlow, but I don't really think that, and 2 of those guys are on 2 ways. And the third guy has been a bench player his whole career. So if you're going into this season with the plan being, if Paul George is hurt to start the season, who's starting in that spot? Is it Trendon Watford, someone who might struggle a little bit defensively? Is it someone like Jabari Walker, who already is going to have some limited days on the 2-way contract? It doesn't feel like they have a great plan for the 4 spot. And my whole thing on this is that I just feel like they're kind of hedging their bets. I feel like they're kind of like, we want to, do a little bit of the 2 timelines thing just because we don't know about Paul George and Joel Embiid's health. But also, what if the what if team, the Sixers, what if Joel Embiid is healthy? Then are you really going to throw him out there without a power forward to complement him and cover up for some of his weaknesses? It feels like it could be a strategy that backfires.
Yeah, I feel like out of Barlow, Trendon Watford, and Jabari Walker, they're definitely more bench pieces for sure, based on what their career looks like so far. But I'd probably say the most power forward type of guy to put next to Embiid is probably Jabari Walker, because he's more of a shooter than the other 2. He's pretty slow-footed, but he can play the 4, and then George can go back to the 3, and that'll help George, not get worn down guarding like Karl Anthony Towns type of players. Maybe it's like a matchup thing. One night they go Oubre, they go Jabari Walker, but I just think Nick Nurse, the way he operates, I think he's going to be like, oh, continuity, Oubre. He just seems to love Oubre. So although Sixers fans, Oubre is very polarizing, if you haven't noticed, you either love him or you hate him. I'm somewhere in the middle where I'm just he's fine, he hustles, but definitely not a starter. For sure, not a starter. I would love him in a bench role. I was watching the Pacers during the playoffs, and I'm looking at Obi Toppin. Obviously, he can shoot the 3 ball, and Oubre, his 3 ball has left him. Besides the first 21 games, he shot 36% from 3, but besides that, he's just been, bad. And we were 17-4 with Oubre in his first 21 games. Then I think he got hit by a car or something. I forget when that happened, but ever since he got hit by a car, he can't shoot, and that pretty much screwed him over. But I think in a condensed role like Obi Toppin, even like a Benedict Mathurin, not like comparing their play styles, but I see them and they come in, and some nights they're hot, and then other nights they're just terrible. And I'm like, Oubre, I think, can play that role on a championship team. Like, there's a lot of Sixers fans who say, oh, Oubre is not even a winning player, which is kind of fair with the role he's in right now with the Sixers, where he just has way too much on his belt. I mean, we went into a Knicks series where he's guarding Jalen Brunson. It's like, that's not what Oubre is. But I think if you condense him, he's only making $8 million. I think he could do like an Obi Toppin type thing if he can get hot from deep, because he does bring rebounding, hustle. He has those putback slams, and he can also score off the dribble every now and again.
So my thing with Oubre is that I do agree that I think in a specific context, he might work probably better in a bench role. If we had the ability to push him to the bench because our wing depth, let's say Justin Edwards took some step forwards, or someone, performs above expectations in this upcoming year, maybe someone like Jabari Walker can fill in at that 4 spot. They convert him to a standard contract. Paul George moves to the 3, and Oubre is your energy guy off the bench. My thing is less about the shooting, and it is more about what does Joel Embiid look like, which is kind of what everything you can say about this team. But the reason why it felt like Oubre was good for the Sixers to start was because he was in a defined role where it was a lot of low-hanging fruit for him. He's a really good athlete. He's going to cut off the ball. He obviously shot above his head a little bit. I mean, if you zoom out, he's on the whole, he's a willing three-point shooter, but he's never been anyone who's even been an above average three-point shooter outside of maybe a season or two here are there. But the thing with that is, like, it felt like he had a lot of good chemistry. He knew where to be with Joel. He could finish around the basket really well. He was someone who could potentially get to the line. He was great when we needed a third or fourth scorer. It feels like a lot of this team has moved away from kind of having like traditional more style role players. And it feels like Oubre's skill set is just a lot less like needed on this team, because once you get Paul George, once you get Quentin Grimes, once you get McCain, then it's like, all right, where is Oubre in the pecking order in terms of scorers? And if he's not someone who's going to be scoring a ton, then really what does he bring to the table? Now, Nurse likes him because defensively he gets a lot of deflections. He's someone who can get steals. There are certain matchups he really struggles in defensively. He just doesn't have the strength, or if he's guarding someone in the Jalen Brunson role, he can tend to get into foul trouble or something along those lines. But the thing with Oubre is, like, in a perfectly maximized role, I think that he could help a team. I just don't know if it's this Sixers team that probably could use off of the ball, could probably use someone who is a little bit better as a decision maker, who's a little bit better as a shooter, who is someone who is like a legit lockdown defender, as opposed to we're probably just asking a little bit too much from Oubre, I feel like, and not really playing into him the same way that when we first had him, when it was him, Maxey, you had one of PJ Tucker or Batum doing kind of the play finishing off the ball or connecting off of the ball and also taking harder defensive matchups from time to time. It feels like Oubre is, I would say, less necessary on this team, and more that, like, if we need someone in his role, and why he's really struggled is because we just haven't had. People always talk about Maxey. Obviously, Maxey's someone who has relied a lot on Joel Embiid, but also has had competent stretches without Joel Embiid, right? Mm-hmm. Oubre is someone that is never going to be good without like a true star hub outside of the random hot shooting stretches he has. Like we had when he would with the Hornets, he had a few times like that. But Oubre is not someone you want like running pick and roll, or he's not someone you want making a ton of decisions. He's just someone you want like, hey, cut to the basket, take the open shot, make hustle plays on defense, rebound, do the dirty work stuff. And if we can get him into a role like that, then I'd feel a lot better about this team. But right now it feels like he's probably going to be that fifth starter, and it's probably not going to be a perfect role for him unless Nick Nurse gets creative and figures out a way to build a better offense maybe one that doesn't rely quite as much on Joel Embiid because he isn't always healthy, and maybe you can run through the guards a little bit more, and Oubre can learn to play off them.